in the addendum being posted through to your iPads. It may be there, but in case it wasn't, we did print some hard copy for you so that you know, just for clarity's sake, the items on the addendum. For 6.10, there's an additional memo for that item. That item is the grant application. The memo notes that the grant, so 5, there's a integrity committee. So the school board, there were some that the traditionally passed. Use our compliance audit committee. For Susan Regiment.
Welcome to. Thank you for attendance. Green represents nature, blue symbolizes serenity, peace and harmony, and purple represents spirit. And whereas the importance of creating safer spaces, developing allies, and eliminating homophobia, transphobia, and biphobia cannot be understated, and we seek to ensure the well-being of all queer and trans people, their families, and their friends in our community. And whereas Pride Fest is an inclusive week for all in the community to come out to support, celebrate, and enjoy the many events and activities that focus on education, awareness, community development, creative expression, and fun for the whole family. Now, therefore, I, Christian Provenzano, as Mayor of the City of Sault Ste. Marie, do hereby proclaim July 22nd to July 29th, 20 of all orientations and identities to join.
Mr. Mayor.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Typically, we're going to be asking you to read what the community had really offered. There was a lot of mistruths and misconceptions, so our staff came up with Services Awareness Week. It really started a great week. Good
afternoon, members of Council, Mayor. Social services plays a role within the community to over 10,000 people. Respect. We believe that there is not a serve. We provide affordable housing to seniors, work families, and individual system that includes 1,300 non-profit child care space in every children each.
And 19 students. We are and passionate of market. 18 separate. We provide support to every social housing provider in the community, such as the Italian Housing Corporation and the Lions Club Housing Corporation.
Unfortunately, many community members are not aware of the vital role that we play or the services we provide. That is why we are asking this chamber and you, Mayor Provenzano, to declare the week of August 13th Social Services Awareness Week. During this week, we will be conducting outreach in an attempt to educate the public about our role and all of the services and help that we provide. On August 15th, we will be hosting our 3rd annual Game On event with our Chapel Housing community and would like to extend an invitation to the Mayor, all members of Council, and the public to attend.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. Mayor, we'd ask if you could please read the proclamation.
Absolutely. Whereas the District of Sault Ste. Marie Social Service Administration Board, also known as Social Services, pursues a strong sense of community awareness and endeavors to be a leader in the development of a fully engaged community where everyone is valued, respected, and recognized. And whereas Social Services aspires to become the trusted source of social services in the community through their dedication to helping people, building lives, and strengthening community. And whereas Social Services will seek to serve to increase public awareness about the program delivery of Ontario Works, early years services and housing, and the good work being done on a daily basis. And whereas the Social Service Awareness Week will incorporate media campaigns and public events, bringing the community together to acknowledge and embrace the unique role that social service plays in the community while expanding the awareness of social services. Now, therefore, I, Christian Provenzano, as Mayor of the City of Sault Ste. Marie, do hereby proclaim August 13th to August 19th, 2018 as Social Services Awareness Week and invite all members of the community to take part in Social Services Awareness Week to acknowledge, celebrate, and embrace our community and its cultural past, present, and future. Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mike and team. I know that your team's all women here, Mike. Send an email. I appreciate it very much. Demonstrated here.
Thank you for the good work you and your staff.
So before we motion on Ian, whereas tourism for the initiatives for our community that have brought recognition at the federal and provincial levels, and whereas these programs have had a direct economic impact on Sault Ste. Marie and area, now therefore be it resolved that Mayor and Council express our gratitude to Ian for his work and wish him much success and enjoyment in his retirement and any future corporation since 2001, and will be retiring at the end of July. Future endeavors.
Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask Ian's lovely wife, Lisa, and daughter, Ashley, if they would come forward, because I think they maybe have a brief message from Ian. Or I can put words in over the years that Sue in 19 is, I believe, changing at. So we worked together for something that you wouldn't around, but Algo, and I had the delight of working with him for 2 years before I retired. So just, I think a number of the people in this chamber know Ian, they know his work, they know his passion and excitement for our community. And he and I both would say it's a real privilege to be the one who markets and promotes your hometown that you love so much and indeed believe is naturally gifted. And he did it. He's done it well. But beyond that, Ian has really put Sault Ste. And as I say, I think that Lisa or Ashley are just going to say a quick word too. Draw a straw, ladies.
Thank you, Councillor Myers, Mayor, Council. Unfortunately, I don't have anything prepared, and Ian is out of town, but I know it's been his honor to serve the city of Sault Ste. Marie and area as Director of Tourism for Sault Ste. Marie. So thank you for supporting him, and this is a great honor for him. Thank you very much.
So I'll just end by saying that I agree with everything Councillor Meyer said. I'm going to try and find a reason for the next few meetings to say that every meeting. It needs to be Councillor Meyer's last. But Ian's been a great guy to work with, and I think he's done, from my estimation, a pretty great job in tourism for Sault Ste. Marie. So he's got a career that he can certainly be proud of, and we wish him well, not in his retirement, because I don't expect Ian's got the disposition to retire. I'm sure he's going to keep busy doing something. But thank you for sharing him, and he did a great job for the city of Sault Ste. Marie, and we thank him for it.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, that brings us to agenda item 5.3, Ermatinger-Clorg National Historic Site 2017 Annual Report.
Welcome to council, Ms. Fisher.
Thank you.
You can get going whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor, Mayor Provenzano, members of council, members of senior staff, and citizens of Sault Ste. Marie. I would like to today acknowledge Councillor Shoemaker for being on the Historic Sites Board for the last year, for which this annual report is being presented. The Historic Sites Board governs the operations of the Ermatinger-Clorg National Historic Site on behalf of you, Council. As a requirement in their bylaws, an annual report must be provided each year. The full report was submitted for your review, but today I'd like to just bring a few. What a year 17 volunteers and activities, as well as with their team from Tourism Sault Ste. Marie. These two enabled the site to be part of the city and have not gone unnoticed. Result of development of culture days, multicultural. This year, it came. But if you look at the just walk in years ago, percent in which from events community. Our junior, as you can see, the and city gardeners. White pine, all other. Thank you on behalf of Historic Sites Board.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, for our next delegation, I had advised them that we would deal with that item after planning, as I wasn't sure how long it would take. I would suggest now that we enter into consent and get a number of items off before 5:30 when we have to go to the planning items. I would also ask council, Mr. Nadeau is here, so if we could begin with item 6.6, unsold tax sale properties for social housing, if there are any questions that way. I'm also aware that there is at least one person in the audience who is interested in any discussion council may have on 6.16, sale of 305 Greenfield Drive.
Okay, so we're going to start with 6.6. Any comments or questions in 6.6, council? Seeing none. Councilor Bruni, was that for 6.6?
Yeah, this is regarding social services, right?
Yeah,
So-
unsold tax sale properties for social housing.
So they just want to be involved in the bidding process? Am I correct?
I'll pass that to the CAO and he can explain.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, I'll let the CFO explain in terms of the process. It's just a cascade where, as part of whenever there's an unsold tax sale, we go to our departments. We just want to add social services
Okay,
to be
fair
that
enough, that's
department.
Do you have anything to add to that, Michelle?
I just want to clarify that this is after we conduct our tax sale process. So that's where we just start distributing it to the various departments of the city. And now we're going to include DSAB also to see if there's a requirement. So we still will be going through our regular tax sale process. They're not part of the tax sale process itself.
So they're not part of it, so they will have basically first choice over.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, there's a tax sale process that takes place.
Yes.
If we are unable to sell the property that we've taken over, then we go to our departments and say, oh,
All
can
right.
you use that,
Okay.
that
Fair
parcel or that property? We're just simply asking that the DSAB be included as part of the list of departments that we go to
After the, okay.
after the process.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to 6.16, which is sale of surplus property 205 Greenfield Drive. Bids received. Any comments or questions on this? Seeing none, we'll move to other matters on consent. Councilor Myers.
.2, the outstanding resolutions. I guess this might be through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Deputy CAO for Corporate Services and City Clerk, Mr. White. Malcolm, some of the outstanding resolutions, such as the public art policy, will be rolled into the future Sault Ste. Marie reporting. I know that one in particular will be. I am looking at Travis, and I know Tom's behind me, and we did have a quick discussion, I think, about this through Virginia McLeod at our last Arts and Culture meeting. But I'm wondering do we need to do something for Councillor Butland and I to actually withdraw this so that it can roll that way, or what should we do to clean this up to get it off this list?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Myers, we will be going through this at the staff meeting tomorrow. Okay. There are some resolutions that do fall into a category. They've been overtaken by a broader initiative.
Okay.
One example is the report I have on tonight on the Truth and Reconciliation Committee.
Yes.
So we will look to clean things up. If they don't fall into it, just because you as a councillor who sponsored a resolution leave and a new council takes over, as you've seen, there are resolutions that have been on the list that have preceded this council. They still are a wish of council, and they still are on the books. That being said, we have noted ourselves, there are some on this list that can be probably cleaned up or
Okay.
associated with broader initiatives.
Yeah, and again, ones that I was related to myself, that would be one of them, the public art policy, which I know would fit under our arts and culture. Another one is the film industry in Sault Ste. Marie. Again, I know we're hiring actually for that position, and that will not be fulfilled by EDC. It's on the list as they would be the lead on it. So again, that would be one that would be addressed the same way that you just described, correct? They will not be
That's
responding.
correct. When that resolution was originally passed,
Yes.
it was with the EDC
Absolutely.
a number of years ago. And
It was,
had
yeah.
been-
Correct, but that's another that's changed. Okay, the Vacation Village report, again, that will not be produced. Ian McMillan was the lead on that. And I'm fairly confident he doesn't have that report ready to come back to us in the next, well, he's gone anyway before we meet again. So that one, I believe Councillor Butland was involved with, and he may want to speak to it, but I don't think there'll be a report coming. Q3 reports around the driveway snow removal, will they be coming? Obviously, in
That's
October.
the council is.
Okay, thank you very much. That
Resolutions list, Councillor Butler.
Carry through the some they still
for like a crossing guard or for new signals. It's not exactly the same for these pedestrian crossovers. I mean, you can put them where they should. They'd be best to go based on traffic volumes, which we know, and the geometry of the road and that. So I mean, it could be that we could be talking about Lake Street too.
Sure, that would be great. And I'm kidding aside, I have been for 12 years trying to get this addressed, because if those, I mean, everyone knows Bellevue Park. I know that some people think it's a good real estate site to develop for estate housing, Councillor Fowler. But point is that it's a premier park for the community, and now we're expanding it more with the splash pad. But if you think about Queen Street, some of you in this room live on the south side of Queen, but where Bellevue Park is, between Churchill Boulevard and Lake, that the bulk of the population is on the north side of Queen, and that's where the sidewalk is. There isn't a sidewalk per se on the south side. So we've been trying to get a safe way for people to cross from the north side of Queen to the south side into the park. And now we're more and more driving activity to the park. So I will be lobbying. Churchill Boulevard's the new boundary between Ward 1 and Ward 2. As a citizen, I'll be lobbying my Ward 1 and my Ward 2 councillors, whoever you may be, that we have to have something definitely, at least at the Churchill Boulevard one. Please, council, when you're doing budget. But I'd really like to see it at Lake Street too. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So Councillor Hollingsworth on this item. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through your worship to Mr. Ramil. This is very good. Thank you for this report. Just for clarification, I've been fortunate to live in many different cities in Canada and the United States, and pedestrian crossovers, each city is a little different. I know that you'll provide further education when and these come, but just quickly, will this include someone pushing a button? Will it include someone pointing their finger to say we're crossing? Can you just give a quick synopsis of
Sure.
what we can expect from a driver's perspective and from a pedestrian?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, these level 2 pedestrian crossovers, there are we're recommending that we adopt type B through D, which they all have a push activated button, an overhead rapid flasher, painted crosswalks with a ladder type crosswalk. There's a couple added enhancements, whether you choose B, C, or D, but for the most part, that's the basics. Is that they are push activated, the button, a strobe type flasher, and there is some changes to the Highway Traffic Act that will, like you said, with the education, we'll have to. That's why we want to do 5 at once, so that we can sort of 5 or 6, so we can provide some education to the public, so they can get used to what's required of the motorist as they see these lights flashing, because there's different fines for if you don't obey to the rules. So there's going to be an education period too.
Okay. And one final question on this topic. I know there has been discussion about those that are in wheelchairs or those who are seniors that depend on walkers. I'm under the impression that the synchronizing the amount of time will reflect, seniors will reflect those that are disabled that may need the extra time to cross. And because I understand there is a little bit of a problem in some of our traffic areas that the flashing light is not as fast, or it's too fast for some people to cross safely.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, I'm not exactly sure what the timing is from the time you push the button to the time the strobe stops flashing. I'm certain that we can deal with our traffic operations people to calibrate that to a suitable length of time. Just quickly, I guess, how these things work is if a person in a wheelchair or a walker presses the button, the strobe activates, and then they proceed to walk across. Vehicles are stopped. If they pass the vehicle that's stopped and they can carry on, if that vehicle moves before they get to the curb, that's the traffic. So it's a stricter crossing. So that's sort of the get these implemented.
Mr. Mayor, it won't be Lake Street, Main Street. That's an important intersection. I'm just as about others in the we didn't.
We are doing the one up the road from. There's that in need to at use.
You, Mr. Mayor, just quick data on the new traffic.
Particular conflicts. Stop sign. So
thank you.
We did not consider.
Thank you, Mayor. Pedestrian.
I literally think of anywhere.
More traffic, probably.
Well,
Mr. Mayor, to council.
Would that
probably had something to do with
just one by time period our experience other than
to be enforcement. These location tension. If you're asking, use them. We'll be doing that period where with police services
standalone sign. This be going to work or come
for the police or our own communication through the regular media pedestrian.
Ramil, get these crosswalks.
Feed across Google. Just some data we've compiled hotspots in town, pedestrian counts in the same way that we do for warrant calculations for crossing guards and that kind of stuff. It's not necessary, but we can.
Wellington street lights at the takes time for people.
Area. Council will recall approving the development that's on Simpson Street, which is 8 townhouses. That's the same developer, and they took a lot of pains and time then to meet with residents and to take into consideration the architectural designs around that area. And they've shown the same sensitivity here. And quite frankly, I don't want it to be lost on council that this developer really had the opportunity of coming to council for 26 units, which obviously has an economic difference from 16 units. But this developer chose to abide by some of the input from residents and really is proceeding with a development that is something that's really going to enhance our area there in that part of Ward 2. So I want to thank our staff, Peter Tanazo, who met with neighbors, who brokered the meetings with the developer, kept me as a ward councillor and Councillor Hollingsworth apprised and informed on the progress of the file. And I also want to, again, not let it be lost that right now, or up until now, it's a construction site at the moment, This was a school that had vandalism, had graffiti, had all kinds of issues, of course, as a lot of our abandoned schools do. Instead, this whole complex between Simpson and Kohler is now developed into a beautiful heritage residential area, and I'm just appreciative that we have a developer investing in our community this way, Mr. Mayor, and I just feel that, council ought to be very aware of that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the developer did a very nice job in the first phase of the project, and I think that gave the neighborhood a lot of confidence on the second phase of the project. The first phase is very nice, and I think it was well received on Simpson Street, and I think the Kohler phase will be equally well received. So if no one here to speak in opposition, thank you to the applicant for being here tonight. And do we have a vote in the matter? All in favor? The application is carried. Thank you very much, Joe.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the second planning item is the Economic Growth Community Improvement Plan. As council is aware, this is the public meeting for that purpose of considering that plan. The plan will be approved by bylaw. However, this would be the opportunity for question and comment, and also the opportunity for anyone who's here to speak in either favor or opposition of it from the gallery.
Okay, well, let's start there. Is anybody here to speak in favor of the SIP? Anybody here to speak in opposition to the community improvement plan? Seeing none, council, do you have any questions about it? All in favor? Carried. That brings us back to 5.4
waste management. Felicia Forbes, QP National Representative, is to his collection service.
You are not Felicia.
I was offered $20 to say I was the counselors in viewing audience at Public Works and President QP depended on affected by your allowing me to address you towards public services being delayed. When and cost, ultimate absence of having services help. Unlike private
from the uncommitted funds available.
So that's the motion that's before us. We'll take questions of staff on this report and the materials they provided. We'll start with Councillor Bruni, then Councillor Turco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to, I believe, to Mr. Girardi. Regarding the contract, the present dump trucks that we have, if we go with the new system, can arms be installed on them to pick up the bins, or do we have to purchase new vehicles?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bruni, I'm going to pass questions off to Susan.
Sure.
Susan Hamilton Beach, who actually wrote the report. For the equipment, first of all, yes, we have 2 trucks that can be refitted, but 2 more will have to be purchased. Now, I think there will be further questions to that, so we'll hand that off to Susan.
Okay. Ms. Hamilton Beach, feel free to answer those questions.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni. Yes, we have in our recent years purchased vehicles that we plan to retrofit should we be providing that service.
Okay, thank you. And if the new bins, recycling bins are going to be provided, is there a bag limit, weight limit for the residents?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, that obviously may return in a amendment to the bylaw. We suppose and we are planned to keep it very similar to the existing. Obviously, the cart size will accommodate that. Again, if bag tags are required, if your resident has extra waste, that can be placed beside the cart.
Okay. And also in the contract, there's no escape clause like through the 8 years. So if there's a dispute with the contractor, where does the city stand? Like, I know they got to follow the contract, but if the service lacks in in year 2 or 3 or 4, what happens?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, the dispute resolution clauses are exactly similar to the ones we would have at this point in time.
Okay. And in the future, if we go with option 2, there would be 1 reduced staff member?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, you are correct.
1 reduced staff member. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we have Councillor Turco next.
Thank you. I'm not going to call Paul up, but I just wanted to make a comment that, and I'm glad that you're supporting the 50-50 proposal staff is recommending here, but I've talked to a number of colleagues around the province, and I know you use Michigan and Toronto, which are a unique situation. You probably have others, but the 50/50 proposal does work in a majority of communities in Ontario because I've asked quite a few of them. Having said that, I do have some questions for staff.
Go ahead.
To Susan Hamilton Beach, what process was followed and what direction from staff was provided to ACOM in the draft and execution of the tender?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Turco. We use an RFP process. We have used this in the past, and it is quite effective. So certainly the core, we outlined the core services which we were after, although we allowed the proposal submissions to provide the information and details as to how those services would be provided. Obviously, costs included.
And there were other, through you, Mr. Mayor, there were other companies that provided the tender?
Through you, Mr. Mayor,
RFP?
Councillor, I'm sorry. Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Turco, yes, we received 4 submissions.
Okay. And one final question, and I think somebody alluded to it a little while ago, about the 7 years, Councillor Bruni. Why 7 years? Is there a reason for that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Turco, it is in fact 8 years, and that in fact is generally the life of waste collection packers and how it would be financed.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I have Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, to Susan Hamilton Beach. You mentioned the carts, I believe, and so my question is, we have a number of seniors or those that have difficulty handling those carts. So my question is this, how do you see helping those citizens that struggle, that can't really move those carts to the curb? We've received these concerns, as you know, for recycling bins, recycling carts, but now we're talking about garbage. So how can we help this group?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth. The carts that have been selected for waste for your single-family residence is slightly smaller, or is smaller than the recycling cart. It can be filled to the extent, obviously, that that resident needs be. So if there's one bag placed in that cart, it would certainly be of a lesser weight than a larger family. I've run tests. I've used those similar to a walker, up my driveway, which actually has an elevation to it, and it's quite easy, I would think, to maneuver. I mean, certainly snow is a factor, but in general, it's very easy to use.
And another question, I appreciate that. When you were doing this research, did you talk to the Committee of the Disabled or else other individuals that are more familiar with the needs of this group to see if they are able to handle these carts, especially in the snow?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, we did not consult at this point in time. More and more communities are going this way in an effort to, in fact, avoid the injuries and to avoid overstraining of carrying bags. So by all means, we can consult to see if there are issues that can be avoided, but in fact, we think it'll be easier.
Okay, I can appreciate that, but as we move forward, I would still like to emphasize that we keep this group in mind because we are a friendly city when it comes to helping this particular group. And I know a resolution was put forward a few weeks ago and maybe tied on.
Councillor Christian.
Mr. Mayor, this question to Ms. Hamilton Beach, just for everybody's consumption. Under a hybrid model, how many city trucks and how many city personnel are involved in weekly waste disposal?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Christian. Currently with the manual collection, we're talking 2 trucks with 4 employees. With an automated collection, we would be using 3 trucks, 1 driver each of those trucks, therefore 3 operators in total.
So essentially, under a hybrid model, city staff are providing the same service that a contractor is doing. My question to you is, when we create the model, is the collection based on geographic areas? Is it done by days of the week? How does that work?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Christian. It actually has been quite an extensive process in modifying the routes. We started with existing boundaries and worked with the GIS system, with our existing collection staff, the management staff, and we have modified which we think will best suit the community. By all means, with the contractor and ourselves at a table, they can be modified to optimize.
If we go to full automation, do we have any metrics in terms of efficiencies? How much quicker are the routes done? How many more locations can be serviced in a day? Do we have any metrics on that on that part of the business with this new automated system?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Christian, I certainly stand to be corrected, but I believe you are looking at approximately 900 stops per day that would be done with the automated.
And what are we currently doing?
I believe it would be slightly more. May I consult my staff?
I'm sorry, I missed that. Can you repeat that?
We'd probably be at 1,000 to 1,200 at this point in time of manual.
All right. I have one other question, and I've forgotten it.
Well, that's too bad then.
It's probably a really good.
Well, we're moving on to Councillor Shoemaker. I imagine he's going to ask whatever question you might have forgotten.
Well,
So-
you know, I'm just stalling slightly here, hoping that it'll jog
Councillor
my
Shoemaker.
memory, but I can't think of it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you to Ms. Hamilton Beach. Ms. Hamilton Beach, what's the projected savings if we were to go to a contractor-only collection?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker. As stated in the report, on the waste collection side, you would be looking at approximately $125,000 per year.
And the contract is for what term?
An 8-year term.
Okay. And is the carts which are provided by the contractor in either scenario are paid back over the 8 years, if I'm not mistaken?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker. No, that would be a one lump sum purchase once they are distributed.
Sorry, the reserve is paid back over the 8 years,
Correct.
is what I meant to ask?
Correct.
Okay. But that money that, excuse me, that money that goes back into the reserve at this point is money that we have to levy through taxes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker.
And one of the
our employees, as well as yes.
So the acquisition is included in that?
You're correct.
Okay. Correct in that?
Shoemaker, correct.
By if collection would go up?
Include the spare with our Mr. Mayor to Councillor Grandin.
Any other questions from council?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, so Councillor Shoemaker wants you to walk through that again. What I'm going to ask, actually, is I'm going to ask somebody to pull this sheet up that council's looking at up on the screen here. So it's up on here, so everybody at home can see it too. Mr. Clerk, can we have somebody do that? There must be somebody in the room that has the ability to put that, that information.
I'm afraid
up
it's
on
not
that
me.
screen. So, I think, Ms. Hamilton Beach, the confusion comes from the fact that staff didn't show that third set of numbers in the bottom analysis. And I get what you're getting to, but I think you have to walk the rest of staff through that, the rest of council through that. Because you show one.
Correct.
And then you show the other, and you show the difference is 12,000.
Yes.
Well, that's a pretty small difference. But
And
when we
my
ask you about-
apologies.
Yeah. When
So
we
in
ask you
fact,
about
this is
that-
a third option.
It is.
If we want to look at it that way.
But
Yes.
you're going to have to explain to council what that is because you didn't enumerate it here.
Okay. Okay.
And I think maybe what you need to explain when we pull it up is what we should do is scroll down to the leaf and yard waste part of this. And then you could walk council through those. Not the report, Mr. Clerk, but yeah, that summary sheet. Okay, so if we all look, you see, and for everybody watching and the people in the gallery, this is a summary sheet staff provided to council. It's in the agenda, it's in the public agenda. And if you look halfway down, we have leaf and yard waste collection, 100% city, it's $175,000 a year, 100% contractor, so this contractor did it, they quoted us at $288 a year. And then explain the third option there, 100% city with 100 contractor waste collection, it's $246.
So
that's where you get the difference in the 55.
Exactly.
Okay,
so what you would then have to add together to get the third option would in fact be our curbside waste collection option 1 and that value there, the 246. And the 246 includes the spare vehicle and our labor costs to conduct the leaf and yard waste program on our with our services.
If we're right out, so if we're not in,
if we're not in the waste collection
it's going to be the contractor price plus the 246.
Exactly. And then that results in the difference between the options for that third option would be $55,000.
Does everybody understand that? Okay, so that would be the difference is what we're talking about. Okay, but if we're in, it goes down to $12,000.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so comments, Councillor Myers? Oh, sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to our CFO, what would $55,000 be in the levy? How much? Percentage. We figure that about 1% in levy equals to about $1 million in spend. So can you?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Myers, that's approximately what you're looking at. So the 165 would be less than.
But it's not, it's 55.
2%, yeah.
What would 55 be?
Probably about 0.1%.
Thank you. Just wanted to make that point. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, comments?
Are you?
We'll start with Councillor Butland.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And I think I have a reasonable handle on the financial part of this, but not a total handle. But I'm beyond that, and it's a public versus private, and I don't like the fact that we portray anybody as a villain in this space. They say, well, they're just in it for profit, and we're the good guys, and we just provide service. I don't want to go there at all. There is a place for public and for profit. There's no doubt about it. And that's why they're in business, to make some money. Our role is to provide a service. And this is one of those absolutely essential services like snow removal. And it's unusual. It's unusual that staff and union come together like this. It's not unique, but it's somewhat unusual. I wish there were more like this. And the regional rep and the local reps met with some of us to say, yeah, we do support senior staff's recommendation. And I say, you know, that's great. I really wish there were more of them. And the general concept of contracting out, I've always been against it. Sometimes probably it does work, but it's not a panacea that some people think it is. What looks good in the beginning, and it has been pointed out by Hamilton Beach, a monopoly becomes a monopoly, and you're good in the beginning because the prices are low. But as the time progresses and the first contract is up goes the prices. And we say, well, we're out of the business now. It's impossible to get back in financial. I just think a good case to us bringing forth this. agreement. And in the beginning, there were a lot, etc. Always been very responsive. And when I'm looking for recycling counsel, I suppose, geez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I echo critically important.
Sanitary processes are upheld, and the hybrid system would definitely continue to keep us in the game and also use a partner. But the most piece I want to just emphasize is driveway, the garbage wasn't picked up. They identify and they understand the needs of our constituents. They understand the needs of that population that may not be able to, may have a health reason, and our public works is there to.
Mr. Bear?
Mr. Bear could answer this question. We tout ourselves as being the green energy capital of the world. Have we looked at, the City of Toronto is looking at purchasing battery electric buses, city buses. Was this put into consideration when we looked at purchasing 2 new buses?
Through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, to Councillor Grandinetti, staff did look at electric buses. I would say at this time there are some larger communities that are piloting those electric buses, and the costs for those systems and the buses themselves are quite a bit higher. So what we chose to do at this time with these first 2 buses was look at conventional buses. That said, we are monitoring reports and pilots by these other communities. And we'll certainly look at that for future purchases of buses.
Thank you, Mr. Bear. That's it on this one, Mr. Acting Mayor.
Okay. Any other matter?
I have another item. Question would go to Mr. McConnell on the 6.9 downtown development. Just one question on the $40,000 that we want to spend on, I guess would be planter boxes / flower boxes. Did this go out for tender?
No, what staff is recommending, through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, to Councillor Grandinetti, the question concerns a recommendation to spend up to $40,000 for some large planters for Queen Street. This is to assist with the continued loss of trees on Queen Street. We're not in a position to go in and spend significant money at this point. But what we have done is we're working with a company, a Canadian manufacturer called Hauser, who is manufacturing the furniture that we will be installing this summer on Gore Street, parts of Queen Street, and on Bruce Street. And this is a very large planter. There's actually several types that complement that furniture design. We've been working with the manufacturer to make sure that they can be moved by forklift. We can use these for various community events as well as putting them on the side of the street. And when Queen Street is eventually redone, these planters can be moved elsewhere in the downtown. So we are recommending that we sole source to that one company to a maximum of $40,000.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McConnell. One more question through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, to Mr. McConnell. Did we even consider looking at a local manufacturer, if there is one, to build these boxes for us?
Through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, to Councillor Grandinetti, that is a possibility that we could look at. But again, this is a company that's in the business. They're very competitive, and they do complement the other street furniture that we will be used. So the answer to the question is no, we have not gone to local companies. We could do that if that was Council's direction.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McConnell. Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. That's it.
Any other councillors with matters on the consent agenda? Councillor Hoopnan, and then Councillor Bruni. Hoopnan.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. 6.20, Great Northern Road second line traffic studies. I have a question for, I guess it's Mr. McConnell, I believe. Actually, Mr. Ramil, sorry. It says that, I guess that would be February 6, 2017, council approved the study to be undertaken. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, to Councillor Huppanen, that was, I believe there's 2 dates in there. Is that the first one? I don't have the report in front of me. First date was when council approved, I think it was Mr. McConnell's study to do the Great Northern Road second line traffic area issues.
Okay. Okay, and how long does it usually take to have the traffic study done?
Through Mr. Mayor, Mr. Acting Mayor, to Councillor Hupinen, that would really vary on the scope of work. For a traffic master plan, it could take a couple of years.
Okay, good. It seems like it has been taking a while. And it also seems that since we requested this, I've been receiving quite a few calls about the busy intersections, and it's the busiest developing ward, I think, in the city right now, and there's a lot of traffic issues. I don't have the study in front of me, the environmental assessment. It's on the website, but can you tell me, the third line and Great Northern Road, is that included on there? I've been receiving some calls about no turning left when you're driving. I guess it would be west on third line onto Great Northern, and it's a bit of a difficulty getting through. Would that be on the study?
Through Mr. Acting Mayor to Councillor Hupinen, I don't believe the intersection of third line and Great Northern Road is part of this study.
Okay. I'm not sure if it's because of the construction that's going on Black Road right now, but could that be? What would we have to do to have that looked at? Because there are some, I am getting quite a few calls from folks saying that it is difficult getting, having a left-hand turn onto Great Northern from third line.
Through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, to Councillor Hupinen, we've had some feedback from the public on that as well too. It could have a little bit to do with the Black Road being closed, not being able to get north-south on Black Road, and then detouring over to Great Northern Road via third line.
Okay. So you think it's temporary? Is that?
I think to some degree it is.
Okay.
We do look at these intersections from time to time, do turning movement counts and traffic counts.
Okay, great. Now, the Old Garden River Road and second line, I believe that's in there as well. I had also received a call from a resident asking about whether we had the capability in the city to put the traffic lights on red when ambulances go through. I said that was a very good question, and I told her that I would find out.
Through Acting Mayor to Councillor Hupinen, that'd be something we'd have to review with the traffic operations staff. I'm not sure if Mr. Girardi would have that information. We could review that, work with the controllers and set those, do that work to the traffic signals.
Okay, thank you. That's good. And actually, I think that's all I have for that one. Thank you, Mr. Ramil.
Hollingsworth on 6.2.
Through you, Acting Mayor, as to the active transportation portion. I know that you made some recommendations on maybe some cycling lanes. Who in the cycling community did you consult to help us understand what is best for the active transportation group, the cycling community? Was there a particular committee? Was there a particular group?
Through you, Acting Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, I'm going to pass this over to Mr. Elliott. He's on the STAC committee, our staff member on the STAC committee. He could probably better address that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Acting Mayor to Councillor Hollingsworth, yeah. In a situation like this, everybody is consulted, all the agencies and notices are sent out, public notices.
Okay, I may sound like a broken record in this question. Looked at on second line or elsewhere, is that correct, or North Street?
To Councillor Hollingsworth, this last council meeting, we have the Small Communities Fund grant for reconstruction of Fort Creek Aqueduct. That's probably the biggest thing there. The other, there's more of the aqueduct work in 2020, and then there isn't any grant-funded aqueduct work in 2021. So you see, that's why you see it going down. I would also add that each one of these.
When I was reading the agenda, something really came out to me, that it says, commit to cost overruns of the project is the responsibility of the city.
Yeah, I'm going to speak to that, and then Councillor Tom Barrett can speak to it after. Al can comment on this too if he likes. There really isn't any potential for this program to have cost overruns because council approves, has approved a budget for it already. Staff has that budget. All the project staff is going to do within this program come to council for approval. It can't run over. But NOHFC requires this language now with all of its funding. It's more relevant to like a construction project, right? Where there could be a cost overrun, say on doing a large scale. If you do an aqueduct, there could be a cost overrun. If you do a building project, there could be a cost overrun. And the funders are just making it clear that although we're participating in this project, we're not taking any responsibility for cost overruns, and we want you to specifically acknowledge that. So there should be no concern from this body that there will be cost overruns because staff is not allowed to approve anything to fund anything outside of the current funding envelope.
Okay.
So it's required by our funding contract, our funding responsibilities, but rest assured that it's not a concern or it shouldn't happen.
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, I echo those comments. Again, we were very pleased that both the federal and provincial governments looked at us in terms of this unique project. They were worried that there were some operating components to it. Normally, it's very much on a capital basis, so that's why they normally don't put that in, because they know there's going to be cost overruns, and you could approach it in that way. With this current program, we would not be going for any cost overruns, and we would be coming to council if there's any change that's going to be taking place to the program in advance of those changes taking place.
Okay. And my final question, whoever wants to answer it, the Community Development Roundtable and all the working committees, action teams, are they going to be open for public? Like, is there going to be any type of postings on our website that they're having a meeting that say if people want to go and see it or want to listen to it?
Generally speaking, no. There are elements to the different action committees. If they want to seek public input or want to have a public session, they're certainly open to do that. But these are very much like working groups that are working on specific topics and questions. And it's also ad hoc, right? So sometimes the group might want to get together on fairly short notice, but we're not approaching it like these are open public meetings.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else in the consent agenda? Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The one about purchasing of a Zamboni, where is it? 6.7.
6.7, so we're on 6.7.
Through you to Mr. Verrett. Mr. Verrett, it appears that the
self-propelled ice surfacer.
Self-propelled ice surfacer.
So don't look for the word Zamboni.
Well, the one we're going with is a Zamboni.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But it is more expensive than the one that says it does not meet specifications. So what is it about that Olympia Millennium model that doesn't meet specifications?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker. The specifications was for a gasoline-powered ice resurfacer, and the one that did not meet specifications was propane-powered.
Okay. Have we? I guess is there a reason we wouldn't accept a propane-powered one?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, staff did look at that. There were some concerns with the infrastructure required, the training required, and some of the related costs for having a single unit that would be propane-powered versus the rest of the gasoline-powered fleet. It's something we will monitor and look at, though, moving forward to see if there is an opportunity down the road.
Okay. Anybody else on the self-propelled ice resurfacing machine? Councillor Shoemaker, do you have any matters on consent you want to canvass?
Yes, the 6.5 Truth and Reconciliation Committee.
Sure.
So I was one of the councillors initially appointed to this committee, and it appears I, through this report, have lost my role. But I guess who does the advisory committee advise to? That's not terribly clear here. Will they come and advise with recommendations to council?
So let me be clear. You're welcome to participate on this.
Okay.
So this is a result of outreach to the First Nation communities and some looking at how other communities were doing things. And I had a meeting with both the chiefs, and they had suggested this would be, I had talked to them about what I saw some other mayors doing and potentially some of the other things we talked about we could do together. And Chief Sayers, Chief Surratt, and I talked about having an Indigenous advisory circle where we can come to it as a community and talk about things going on in the community. We can get feedback. So the advice would be to us at large, right? So it would be something that is open. It's why it's a circle, and you would certainly be welcome to come there and participate in it. At Chief Sayers' suggestion, we decided we would call it the Baoting Advisory Circle, which I thought was a really nice suggestion. I was happy to act on that. So this was really done, what we asked staff to do was consult and come back to us. And after some time had passed and some outreach was made, it was evident that it was really my responsibility to do the outreach. And after a number of conversations with our First Nations partners, this made a lot of sense. We went through the Community Adjustment Committee process. Furthering our Indigenous relationships was a top goal, and when we discussed some of the ways to do that, it just all aligned, right? So instead of having multiple bodies that are looking at this, we said, well, we'll do it this way, and we'll include, we certainly would include anybody from City Council who wanted to come and participate in it. So we'll keep you apprised of whenever we do get together.
Okay, perfect. And then I guess just to hit on one of the points I think I heard you touch on, any recommendations that come forward will come, as a decision to be made by council?
Sure.
Okay.
So like it would be the place where council would go to get feedback about what we can do to move forward as a community and what they might think of an idea that we have, or maybe some input on ideas that they'd like to see us move forward with.
Okay.
So I see it very much as an advisory circle for us.
Thank you. That's
Councilor
helpful.
Myers on that?
Were you done?
I'm good.
I was also on that committee, Mr. Mayor, and I think we were appointed by council. So I was just going to ask procedurally of the clerk, do we need to formally sort of disband that committee? Because I believe that Councilor Shoemaker and I were both appointed to that by council.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Myers, I don't think there's a need to do anything else. The report notes that the mandate of that committee would transfer over to this.
Okay, so we don't have to formally dissolve the committee or anything like that. Okay, thank you.
On that, Councillor Butland? Okay. Councillor Shoemaker, can I move to Councillor Butland on the consent agenda here?
Yes.
Councillor Butland.
6.3, recruitment of new city solicitor. It indicates that the city guidelines suggest, I guess, that we have a selection committee. Is the option still available to appoint and/or have a selection committee? Are they both available to us?
Well, ultimately, City Council decides what to do. City staff is recommending that we go through a selection process. If City Council was of the opinion we should appoint you, we wouldn't need a selection process.
Correct.
Right? So if you're not in favor of this resolution, then that's a different issue.
Okay. Thank you.
We haven't decided to go through this process. It's before us for a decision tonight. So you're asking if it's open to us. It certainly is, but this is the recommendation from city staff. Councilor Myers?
And I think I had sent an email and asked, again, I guess it's a bit of a procedure question. I offered to go on this when you were seeking representation from council, but I wasn't sure if you had hoped to conclude the matter prior to the end of the term where it would be inappropriate for me to be there. But I made the offer.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Myers, you were the only councillor that has indicated to me so far that you wish to serve on it. So when this item came up, I was going to bring up that fact. The time frame on the selection will be well within the term of this council.
Well, and I'll put on a campaign now to my fellow councillors to support my offer to go on the committee.
I think... Okay, so is that incorporated into this motion then, Councillor? Sorry, everybody's a councillor tonight. Mr.
If council is amenable to that, I can just make the change on the resolution. If there is another council member who wishes to be, then obviously have a vote.
So if another councillor wants to participate in this, we would obviously have to vote. Seeing no one would be putting up their hands to participate in it. Councillor Myers will serve as the council representative.
It's so nice to be
Okay,
acclaimed.
so we're just going to amend this motion for the consent agenda to include Councillor Meyer. Okay, any other matters on the consent agenda? Councillor Shoemaker.
I believe that, perhaps I'm mistaken, but I believe the folks who are here
Yeah.
are here on the taxi matter.
Yep, they are.
So I guess I would ask a question to get it on the table, which is through you, and I'm not sure, perhaps to Ms. Kenny, or perhaps to you as a member of the Police Services Board, Mr. Mayor. Is there any information in the that's available? I guess I didn't see it in the report. Is there any information available on the need for the increase for the sustainability of the industry? I certainly didn't see that in the report.
Okay, so when this matter was originally before the Police Service Board, we didn't vote on the matter at that meeting. It was a February meeting. I certainly wasn't willing to vote on it at that time because I didn't see the information we needed to support the request. It went to the March meeting, which I wasn't at, and it was supported by the Police Service Board at that meeting, and it ends up before us. Frankly, at our last meeting, what I understood council had said to city staff was, we don't have the necessary information to support this, so we sent it to city staff, and they gave it back to us. What you have before you is the information that's at city staff's disposal. At the Police Service Board, there was information provided with some comparator communities, and at the time when you looked at that information, it didn't seem like the rates here as they stood were inconsistent with the comparator communities. So that was my point at the original Police Service Board meeting was, this is in line with the other communities. I think that when I asked, so what's the difference, the response I got, and I speak for in Sault Ste. Marie, that they have of the request for the minimum wage, I had a hard time understanding that Thunder Bay law. I'm not suggesting structures and those other.
Right.
That's giving you that information.
That I'm mistaken.
See, this, I don't recall.
Our northern communities, they're on.
Councillor, information isn't on here. So, yeah, the word is that the
helpful, but I think even beyond that.
Consent agenda, please.
I have a motion by Councillors Christian and Grandinetti. Resolved that all items listed under date 2018-07-16, agenda item 6, consent agenda, and the addendum be approved as recommended.
All in favor? Carried.
Council, that brings us to agenda item 7.8.1, Sault Ste. Marie Innovation Center. Whereas City Solicitor Nuala Kenny joined the City of Sault Ste. Marie Legal Department in 1995, and whereas in her capacity she has served the corporation very well, and whereas Ms. Kenny has provided critical guidance to the Mayor and Council on numerous files over the years, now therefore be it resolved that Mayor and Council express gratitude to Nuala for her work with the City and wish her much success and happiness in her future endeavors.
I don't know if we're going to pass this resolution unanimously, Nuala. Councillor Butland, do you want us to start and move to Councillor Myers after?
A very, very good friend of mine said some years ago that he had a student in his class who was probably the brightest of the brightest, and her name was Nuala. Nuala Kenny was her name. And known Nuala for all the time that she's been with the city. She's articulate, straight shooter. That's a very definite quality. She knows her job content exceedingly well, very well respected. Today, I had a personal...
I think she said no, so...
And I said, well, I have not heard there's any legal of the